It's Tuesday, January 4th, 2011. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, Super Meat Boy!
Let's do this.
See, if I hadn't said the year, people wouldn't have known.
I think they would know.
They would have no idea, especially, 20 years from now when Geeknights is in the National Archives, a national treasure. They got to know.
I'm sure. It'll be a big problem for them.
Scott's
They won't be able to look at the file, the name of the file.
Maybe they won't.
Or
Maybe
any of the ID3
in the far future, they
information.
won't have files.
Or the website.
They won't have file names. The website, long gone.
Well, you know what? Whatever there will be in the future, I will update it to,
Because you're going to be alive.
If I am to dead, in that it is that
I'm
far,
at least I'm hoping that Geeknights will outlive me.
if it's 2 days in the future and I die tomorrow, then oh well. But
So we had our crazies. We might be a little low energy tonight because we had our annual New Year's Eve front row crew extravaganza, which this year was possibly the biggest one yet simultaneously in the smallest combined spaces.
I don't know. I don't know if it was the biggest. We didn't count the bodies, and a lot of the bodies were not simultaneous.
But there was one moment when everybody was simultaneous.
Almost.
Yeah, everybody. Everybody who came to New York, at least.
Mm.
There were a few people who weren't here at all. They didn't fly out for obvious reasons. But
Bums.
we had a big old party and a little tired. Played a lot of games. It's amazing how much Super Meat Boy is kind of a spectator sport, almost more so than a single-player game.
Well, because it's more what it more is when you have a whole bunch of people, right, like us playing it as a spectator sport. It's like, you suck. Let's see you do it, bitch. Oh, you can't beat it. Oh, you suck.
A lot of people trash
It's like,
talk.
here, let me show you how it's done. Boom, beaten.
A lot of
Boom,
people
beaten.
trash talk a surprising amount when they're not playing. If you hand them the controller, nothing happens.
Hey, listen, I got into that what's that guy's name? Ogmo?
Ogmo.
Yeah, I was doing the Ogmo warp zone, and we get to the final level of it, and everyone was like, looked at it and was like, ooh. And then I got up to I got way up there right in the first go, and they were like, oh, snap.
It wasn't that hard, though. Ogmo's pretty easy to use.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's slow, though.
He's no good on any level. We'll talk about Super Meat Boy in a bit. So, I really briefly want to geekbite Cthulhu Saves the World because
I also played Cthulhu Saves
we all
the
played
World.
the demo. Someone downloaded it onto my
I
Xbox. You did. I played it a couple times.
I played it for lols.
It is not worth any amount of money.
I would not pay any money for it.
And even if it were free,
I would pay 1 penny.
if it is
one
free,
penny.
it is not worth the time to play it.
That is all. Well, it does have two things that other because it's a JRPG, no question.
It's basically a Cthulhu JRPG. You're Cthulhu. He's Nyarlathotep, or someone's taken away his power, and to get it back, he has to be a good guy.
Yeah, but the thing is, right, it does have two things better than other JRPGs that make it maybe tolerable to beat the whole thing.
Well, number one,
you can run really fast on the map.
That's okay. I was talking more number two. Once you have done 25 random encounters in an area, they will never happen again.
Well, at least the first area, the number is 25. I don't know what the number is in other areas. And you can turn them back on if you want, but basically each area has a number of encounters that is the limit of random encounters in that area, which is genius, right? Because it's so perfect because look, a lot of times, you don't know how much should I level up? Well, this game is like, here, this is how much you should level up. And the third thing it does, which you probably didn't even realize, after you do a combat, you get full HPs afterwards. You only need to heal if you're going to die in the combat.
Of course, that does remove one of the aspects of the JRPG, which is often there. I'm running low on supplies and need to make it out of here.
But who cares?
That depends.
The only reason to play this game is for the lols.
It's okay, lols. It's not great.
I thought it was good lols.
It was okay. The thing is, it was a little predictable.
Yeah.
The jokes were a little bit obvious and ham-fisted.
I think they were lols.
She's a groupie. Cthulhu gets a groupie. She follows him around. Stuff like that.
Yep. I think the demo is one of those time limit demos, so I ran really, really fast to try to get to the to see as much content as possible.
Yeah, I got to that other adventuring party. And
yeah, that's where I got.
I beat them by holding A. I beat everything by holding A.
Yep, everything by holding A.
The combat has kind of a combo system.
That is one thing I didn't like though, is that none of the moves have really different animations. That's one, like in Pokemon, you want to turn the animations off, but not until you've seen them. At least
and
once.
even in like Final Fantasy IV, all the spells had cool stuff going on. You at least wanted
But
to
like,
see
I never
the
saw
spells.
like Cthulhu hit anyone with a sword or wrap his tentacles around anyone or anything like that.
Yeah,
It was
my
just-
insanity strike was just badoop.
Yep, boring.
Though you get points for being able to make monsters go insane. I never figured out what that did because they died at the same time that they went insane.
I think that's the point. Is that you can kill them by making them too insane, and you can also kill them by killing them.
So 2 things that bother me. 1, you get some good guy to join your party, and she has powers that make people go insane, just like Cthulhu does.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, you rescue her from 2 monsters that are basically this game's equivalent of imps. And she, in your party, is immediately powerful enough to take on infinity imps. So what the hell, game? But Cthulhu does make this good face where he's kind of like, all the time.
It's not about making sense, right? And this is another thing that bothers me. It's like we see in gaming as a whole this today, right? A lot of people are taking this route where they find a genre of game, and instead of fixing the fundamental problems of the genre, which basically means making a fundamentally different game that's not in the genre, what they do is they polish the problems of the genre so that they bother you as little as possible. For example, random encounters bother you in the JRPGs. Oh, like Earthbound, for example, right? Random encounters bother you. Well, if the monster's too weak, you just win, right? Or, it's really bothersome to organize all your equipment and to purchase the right equipment. So we'll put in an auto buying button. It automatically buys the best equipment. It's why don't you just remove the equipment buying from the game?
Well, you see, the slippery slope there is press A to play the game optimally and see all the cutscenes in order.
In other words, why the fuck did you make a video game? Just make a video on YouTube. And that's, I think, a lot of the point-and-click adventure games that are pretty much trial and error until you see the next piece of plot really should do that. They should just be, here are interactive choose-your-own adventure books.
So, Scott, you've gotten very close to my point. The reason I wanted to geekbite Cthulhu Saves the World is that I like the idea, taking the piss out of a genre and, throwing in a geeky element. I mean, Charles Barkley, Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
Hells yeah.
I don't want to play that, but I enjoy the idea of it so much. I like saying the name of it. Charles Barkley, Shut Up and Jam Gaiden.
Yep.
Gaiden.
Ninja.
But we have a problem now in the gaming industry with games like this where I am pirating all of the games like this by watching other people play them on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not necessarily, is it piracy to take a video of a game and put it online? Because it cannot replace the experience of playing. It can replace the experience of playing the game in many cases.
Some games.
In a JRPG, you can just sit there with the controller and hold A the whole time.
Yeah.
Or like Poker Night, same thing. I just watched it. Cthulhu, I'll probably watch some YouTube highlights to make sure I don't miss all the good jokes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll read the game fact.
Something I've been doing with the point-and-click adventure games is I haven't watched them on YouTube, but I get the fact and I basically blow through it real fast, without, having to sit there for an hour clicking on every single thing on the screen with every single other thing on the screen. Or I did it with Machinarium, and it basically took about the same amount of time, to play it on YouTube as it did to, just go with the FAQ. And with the FAQ, you get better resolution.
See, at least the Quest for Glory games, after the first one, as point-and-click adventures or type and move around with the keyboard adventures, it was mostly logical puzzles that you could just solve and that were actually interesting. It wasn't the arbitrary walk into a room, take every item and use on everything, see all the deaths, and eventually one of them lets you go to the next room.
Yeah. There is this one, I forget the name of it, that I got in some Steam sale that's basically this pirate dog. And the thing was, that one was actually funny. I was like, oh man. So I've been going through that slowly with the FAQ. But it is pretty logical. It doesn't have too many arbitrary bullshits.
But anyway, I do have an actual kind of gaming news that came up over the New Year's holiday that was kind of important.
All right.
As we always say, mostly on Mondays, because that's when the tech stuff comes up, if you have to give the consumer access to the hardware at all, as in they own the hardware or the hardware is in their house in any way, you cannot have perfect DRM.
That's right.
So the PS3 had DRM, and you could sign games, and the PS3 will only play signed games. And they had this whole system where if someone, they give a company a key that lets them sign games, if they sign bad shit, they could revoke those keys and force them to be reissued, and they could update the PS3 firmware, all sorts of stuff. But there has to be somewhere a hardware master key. and there is in fact a hardware master key, and it has finally been revealed. So basically, short of replacing PS3 hardware, there is nothing Sony can do to prevent anyone from safely rooting their PS3s forever, and you don't even need to root it. You can just download whatever pirated stuff or homebrew stuff people make because they can sign stuff legitimately, and Sony cannot revoke the master key.
Yep. So it's like you can't. This isn't even a situation where you need a mod chip, right? It's anyone can just make a Blu-ray disc, and the PlayStation will recognize it as legitimate. And since it's the master key, right? It's like they could maybe update a firmware and put some sub-master keys, but they'd have to like redo their whole thing, and then someone, it's pretty much doomsday for them in that department.
Yep, which has two primary uses.
It's not really a big change though. They used to let you run Linux on there and stuff. Not anymore though.
Yeah, well then they took it away, and to this day I cannot fathom why.
And they also took away the backward compatibility.
I don't get Sony. The PS3, I feel like
They're
it's really,
Japanese. They don't get it.
but it's languishing, but it's not failing.
Same as the PSP.
Yeah, the PSP is a solid second place, but it's second place way off in the distance. Like, hey guys, I'm still here.
And do you know anyone with a PSP Go? I mean, everyone has the regular PSP. No one has that PSP Go.
I know less than 2 or 3 people who have even PSPs.
I know, right?
And I've thought about buying one like 10 times, but then I look at the game list again and I think,
It's sort of like the PSP for me. It sort of has one of those game lists, sort of like the Dreamcast does, or like the Saturn, right? Where there's some of these quirky games that you're never going to play anywhere else that it's like, oh man, I'd really like to play 1 or 2 of those, but I'm not going to get a whole system to play like that weird Mega Man game that came out for the PSP.
Yeah.
Or Bomberman for the Saturn, or any of those kinds of things.
The thing is, most of the games I want to play like that are old enough to where emulation.
Well, the thing is, as I was talking about before when I was discussing the MAME failures, right, is in a previous episode, recent previous episode, is that emulation is sort of failing for anything beyond like the PS1, Pretty much PS2 and on, emulation is real weak. N64 emulation is there-ish, weakish.
Of course, that does make sense, just because, at least on Sony's side with the cell processor and the way games work, the complexity of what needs to be emulated is exponential.
Yeah, so pretty much like everything PS1 and earlier, you can emulate. But anything after that, you're better off getting a system and then getting a mod chip and then getting copied discs.
Now, meanwhile, on the Microsoft side, you basically have to emulate a Windows computer. Oh, just run Windows.
There you go. Okay.
Got any news?
Well, it's sort of news. This would normally be thing of the day material, but I'm going to spin it as news.
Oh,
right?
really?
Because it's very important, right?
You want me to edit out that you're spinning it, or you want the spin to be apparent?
It's fine. There's these guys, right, and they made a thing, and that's the news, that these guys have accomplished this feat, right? The feat that they have accomplished is they have beaten Quake 1 with 100% secrets. They got every secret, and they got 100% kills. They killed everything. And it was a speed run, so they did it crazy fast. And it was a team of guys. I'm not sure how much of it was like machine assisted.
I've decided I don't care anymore.
It doesn't really matter, right? Whether they did save and load or retry or whatever, right? The fact is, you do it. Whether you do it that way or not, you're still doing it. And they, they basically, each guy was responsible for certain levels, and they combined all their successes together and created a single speedrun video. And it's on YouTube. It's Quake 1, 100% done quickest.
It does remind me, if nothing else, how fast and how crazy the Quake 1 engine was.
Yeah, that's, the major reasons I want people to see this video are, number one, you can see Quake 1 if you haven't, gotten it on Steam or played it or anything. And two, you can see, right, for many years we've been, having the constant debate has been ongoing of, oh no, console FPSs, PC FPSs, keyboard and mouse, gamepad, blah, 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 right? And here, this video, better than any other that I've ever seen in many years, illustrates in, for 40 minutes, it illustrates, look, this is how a real, Twitch hardcore FPS goes. Look how fast this is. Look how fast they turn. Look at the maneuvers that are made. Look at the precision and the speed of the aiming, and there is absolutely no way that this can be possible using analog sticks, because while they are analog, the same as a mouse, and while they have 2 axes, the same as a mouse, they are limited. You can only push the stick so far to the left and then you will rotate to the left at the fastest speed. Whereas with a mouse, there is no limit. You can slide your mouse all the way across the desk at the highest sensitivity
an analog
and spin
stick,
around, now, 10
Scott,
billion degrees.
An analog stick on a computer with effectively infinite control, much like with a mouse. Like if you can sit there and decide the sensitivity at every threshold, you could make an equivalent. But humans might not be able to use it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So, you'd have to move the stick like, 2
Well, you can make a bigger
stick.
stick. It is possible. I'm just arguing that. But no console FPS has ever done anything like that.
No, I mean, some of them do let you turn the sensitivity way up, but it, the physicality of it makes it pretty impossible. The other problem that I realized more recently with the console FPSs, right, is the twin stick, right? So you got 2 thumbs on 2 sticks, and you basically, that leaves your, index and ring and middle fingers to work the left button, left trigger, right trigger. That gives you 4 buttons that you can press while simultaneously moving and aiming.
Scott, you can push in either of the sticks.
Okay, so 6 buttons you can do.
Of course, that does disrupt your aiming, but I guess that doesn't matter in a
Slightly.
console FPS.
Right. So you can move, aim, and push 6 buttons, simultaneously while moving and aiming. But with the mouse and keyboard, you can push every button on the keyboard simultaneously to moving and aiming.
What I would like
So
on my
you
keyboard...
can jump, shoot, use an item, do a backflip.
What I would like, though, now imagine this. I have my keyboard, but I only use the keyboard because it's kind of a basic thing. I just need a whole bunch of buttons in a grid. Ideally, I'd have a whole bunch of buttons in a grid, and where my thumb goes, instead of buttons, I would have an analog stick for moving in the 2-dimensional plane, and then the mouse is the aiming in the 2-dimensional plane.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could go crazy.
That is true because
and
even
double fist it with 2 mice, each one with an array of buttons.
Well, that is true because for aiming you absolutely need the unlimited motion of a mouse. But for moving, every FPS I've ever played ever has a limit to the speed of moving, so you can't move any faster, right? So an analog stick is just as good, if not better, for moving than a WASD.
Though
right?
what I did do,
but aiming is far more important.
I haven't made a
than
video
moving.
of it yet to put online, but I've been experimenting with filming with a little HD camera what my hands are doing on the keyboard, what my hands doing on the mouse, what's going on the screen when I play Counter-Strike.
Mm-hmm.
And
a lot of fighting games do videos like that, which is very helpful.
Yep, it was kind of weird to watch myself because I feel, when the APMs that StarCraft players talk about, I see myself doing something similar when I play Counter-Strike. When I'm like waiting for someone or I'm itching to shoot, I'm kind of going straight, like I'm hitting the strafe button, just like pop, 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 back and forth all the time. It's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you should watch this video, Quake done 100% quickest, because a lot of the speed runs are all about just get to the end of the level. It takes 2 seconds. You're like, what happened? But this one, they actually kill all the bad guys, so you can see a lot more aiming and shooting going on, and they have to avoid dying.
I do have a confession to make. I never even played through more than like 10 levels in Quake 1 single player. And I never played through most of Quake 2 single player. I started playing them. Once I learned how to play, I immediately went to online deathmatch and never looked back. I basically had I hated the single player game. 2 was a little better. There was more stuff going on, but even then...
I think they were pretty equal.
I skipped and beat the end of both of them, but... So, things of the day. I know it's on College Humor, but I found it pretty funny, and everyone we know who isn't not scared of games found it desperately funny. So I figure it's worth being a thing of the day. It's a dude... He sounds like he's vaguely, like he's in the same archetype of Dave Riley, but Dave Riley's not a goddamn pussy like this guy is.
All right.
He's playing a recent scary video game, and he's losing his shit, as some people do when they play recent scary video games. I find it hilarious.
I don't think it's that funny.
I think it's pretty funny.
It's just sort of sad.
I find it more funny than sad, because he is enjoying himself.
I don't think so.
Maybe he wet himself.
That might be true, and that is sad.
All right, what do you have? What's better than that?
So check out this dude, right, is a homeless dude in Columbus, Ohio, the kind that stands on the high side of the highway with a sign, right? And this guy goes up and pulls up next to him, and this homeless dude somehow has like a professional radio voice. And basically the story is this guy, he was growing up, he met some radio guy, and he fell in love with radio, and he wanted to be a radio voice guy. He went to school for radio voice. He got the great radio voice. His life was, like, pretty good. And then he got all druggy and he became a homeless bum. But he says, they do interview him, and he does say that he's been clean for 2 years, and he's not insane like most homeless people. And he's just trying to, get by like a homeless person does. And the one thing that I just don't understand is, like, if he's not insane and he has the radio voice, right? This guy could be totally just fine. It's like, dude, go take a shower, cut off your homeless hair, right? Buy one pair of clothes, at somewhere.
Wait, no. I can tell you exactly how to get this guy back on his feet. Step 1, go find Tay Zonday. Step 2, get this guy. Step 3, put him in a recording studio, record a Chocolate Rain duet, sell a single.
I think this guy would be better for doing, just voiceover stuff. Like,
hey,
it's Q107.
Just for the meme side of it, if you get those two guys together, that would make meme magic.
But I mean, this guy could, if the guy's not insane, he can get a job at a McDonald's, like, boom, instantly. And even though he might not have a house yet, he could save up, live in something.
If he lived nearby, we could try to hire him to come to Connecticut and do all the announcements.
He's in Columbus, Ohio. But, another thing he could do is he can go to any library where they have computers, right? He could get a cookie cutter website, for $0, a free cookie cutter crap website with some ads on it, and then be like, I will do voiceovers for you, $5. Set up a free PayPal account. People send him $5. He could record, a voiceover with a shitty microphone on the library computer and email it to them as a WAV file with Audacity or some shit. And he can start a little tiny business from the library computer until he gets a laptop, and then he could work at a Starbucks.
Where's he going to record, though?
In the Starbucks.
In the library?
In the Starbucks.
In the Starbucks. So I'm sitting there drinking my latte, and then next to me suddenly, it's Tuesday.
Yeah, so? He's a homeless guy, but that'd be his job, and eventually, if he saved up, he could get an apartment. I'm sure, it's Columbus, Ohio. It's not like New York. You could live in an apartment for pretty cheap. I'm sure there's a place with low rents that's...
I was going to lean in to try to do the proper, swallow the mic radio voice, but my pop filter's kind of in the way.
And then once he's that far, he's looking pretty good. So go homeless guy with talents.
Meta moment, kind of important because it might disrupt Geeknights one last time before we're back on our, normal schedule. Coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend, January 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. In Alexandria, Virginia, we will be at MAGFEST 9. The 9th MAGFEST. Doing 9 panels. No, doing 3 panels. We are doing Losing Should Be Fun, which is a panel we did at a bunch of PAXs. Slightly redone. We've updated it a little bit.
It needs update.
We might have an hour and a half instead of an hour.
Whoa.
Which means for the first time ever, we could take questions.
Got to add Scott's rules of question asking.
They're already in there.
All right.
And we are going to be on 2 panels with the Mag 9 gaming intellectuals. I'm not sure if they counted me and Scott as 1 Mag 9 or 2. So it might be the Mag 10 for MAGFEST 9.
I don't know. We're not on the MAGFEST website, and they don't have a schedule up, but we know what we're doing.
Yes, there are long email threads about this, but suffice it to say, we will also, in addition to Losing Should Be Fun, be on technical changes in game design.
Right.
And we will be on achievements and metagaming.
Oh, yeah, that one's going to be...
I hope someone disagrees with me.
It's going to be a throwdown.
Oh, my God. I hope someone is like, what's wrong with Zynga? They make great games.
Anyway,
I don't think that'll happen.
But yeah, MAGFest, I don't think, the other cons we go to, right? Like even PAX, where I try to play a lot of games, the panels are still pretty significant. At MAGFest, I'm feeling the panels less significant because it's 4 days of drunkenness in a hotel nonstop. I'm definitely feeling
gaming and concerts.
A lot more gaming concert activity.
Yeah,
and,
we have very few responsibilities at the con. I mean, PAX, we do a lot of stuff other than just our panels. Here, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
At PAX, it's like, well, you have to go to the opening, whatever, and you have to go to the closing, and you have to, right? But at MAGFest, it's like, what do I have to go to? Nothing.
Also,
except my own stuff.
The con, unlike PAX, both PAXs, which are right near a whole bunch of stuff.
Lunch.
I mean, downtown Seattle, pretty rockin'. Downtown Boston, pretty rockin'. There's nothing going on in Alexandria, Virginia by this hotel.
Except MAGFest.
I should also warn people who are attending, if you are not aware, parking at MAGFest sucks balls.
According to other people, we don't know for sure. But
we know for sure. The
MAGFest
website itself says, hey, our parking sucks.
I believe
you basically cannot park here. Figure something out. Try not to drive.
I believe it.
So look at the website. They have a bunch of helpful hints, which basically boil down to Don't park in the fire lane. They towed like 12 dozen cars last year. Don't park out on the street where they will tow you. Don't park at the stores where they will tow you. Don't park in front of the apartments across the street where they will tow you. Also, this weekend, you can go, even if you're going to MAGFEST. On Friday is another Nerd NYC game night at Think Coffee downtown. We'll link to it. We'll
and
be
the
there.
MAGFest weekend is a recess, double recess.
Yes, you should
Saturday
go too.
and Sunday in New York City, all gaming.
So if you are not going to MAGFest because you are a sad loser, or maybe you can't get there, then you can go to the recess, which is basically 2 days of concentrated gaming. And if you don't know what the Nerd NYC gaming stuff is like, this weekend on Friday, you can go to their normal thing. And if you don't live in New York, well, loser.
One other meta item is, our forum, right? The way it works is you apply for, to be registered, and then we approve.
I've denied a bunch of people recently.
Yes, we have, we were originally approving anyone who typed any English. Now, there is a section on the application. Pretty much you enter in, username, email address. It's almost nothing, right? Password. But there is one box where it says, tell us why you want to join. And a lot of people would type something in there like, I want to discuss the podcast. Well, that's a complete sentence. So I would, I could go for that. I could approve that. But a lot of people would write things like discussion. And I'm like, from now on, I used to approve something like that.
See, now what bothers me is...
And give them the benefit of the doubt and then reject them once they started spamming.
Half the time when I get someone who's like discussion or penis or something, they're a real person. But half the time now they're a spam bot.
So basically, when you type into that box, write something that proves you're not a spam.
We should update the text to say, basically, type something to prove that you are human.
Yeah, it's like write a complete sentence.
And if you type
write
the words,
something that proves that you're a listener of the podcast, like, I want to talk about the last episode or something, that's not just a word like, hey, because I'm just going to reject that because there's been some spamming.
You just have to prove to us that you are human. And if you got rejected at all, you basically you did not prove to me that you are actually a human being.
Yeah, if you're a human and you got rejected, apply again and just type something more significant in that box.
Now, if you type something more significant...
I don't want to use a CAPTCHA because someone could break a CAPTCHA. This, I'm the judge of it, as opposed to the CAPTCHA being the judge of it. So
yeah,
no way...
I can approve or disprove a couple hundred of these a day if I need to. It scales pretty well.
Yeah. And if we're getting so many, we can't handle it, approving and disproving
I think at that point, we'll be able to hire a moderator to do it for us.
That means we're so popular that we're doing pretty good.
So, Super Meat Boy, SMB, Super Mario Brothers.
Definitely intentional
some
naming.
sort of homage, perhaps.
Perhaps. Not really, kind of.
If they called it Super Meat Boy 3, I would have agreed. Because Mario 3 is pretty much one of the most tightest, most rock-solid 2D platformers the world has ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, it is. No, but Super Meat Boy, right? I first actually saw the game being played at PAX West, right? It was part of the PAX 10, I believe.
Yeah, I was pretty goddamn indifferent to it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I don't know. When I saw it being played there, right? Basically what I saw was a guy who was doing wall jumps, right? And he had to be just so precise so as not to die. And everyone was like, oh. And I'm sitting there watching thinking, oh, man, I could totally do it. No, I would fail also, right? It's like... Because everyone there was, had the platforming skills, and everyone would, you'd fail a whole bunch until you eventually hit it just right. And that's what Super Meat Boy is. It's a platforming game, and it's not a puzzle platformer, right? You don't.
Well, there are some nominal puzzles. You have to figure, like later in Hell, there'll be a whole bunch of portals, and it's kind of a, can you figure out the way through? Followed by, can you actually do it now that you figured it out?
Yeah, but there's not that much figuring out.
No.
Puzzle platformers are usually more along the lines of, okay, there's a block puzzle.
Yeah, pick up the block, run with it, drop it somewhere.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. This is, or, like Braid. Braid is a puzzle platformer, right? It's not can you jump, it's can you figure out what the hell...
one definition of puzzle is just whether or not it's trivial to solve or not. If you're an intelligent person...
technically, any single-player game is a puzzle. Right?
If you're playing tic-tac-toe against an AI and you're not that bright, it's a puzzle.
That's true. But, Mario versus Donkey Kong, that is like that's for me is like the classic, what is a puzzle platformer? That is a puzzle platformer.
The thing with Meat Boy is that there are many of this so-called the genre of ultra-hard precision platformers. And
yeah, there's like N+.
Meat Boy
and I Want to Be the Guy
is my favorite of all these. I think they're all legitimate games, but... Meat Boy is the only one that is both harsh and fair simultaneously.
That is, if you watch Angry Video Game Nerd, you will see pretty much all of these incredibly old games that, frustrate the angry video game nerd and make him so angry. And the reason they make him so angry is because the design of these games is either, is unfair or just broken, right? There'll be games where you die in one hit. Okay, that could be fair, but you didn't get hit. If you actually look at the pixels, you did not get hit, but the game registered a hit. Or there'll be games where, you'll have to make some ridiculous jump, but the ridiculous jump is actually like 1 pixel too far. Or Ninja Turtles, right? You try to make this jump, but you fall through. And you can actually walk across, but it's not obvious that you can walk across. The design of the game is busted so that you're not totally sure, that this is possible.
I'm pretty sure that was intentional.
Possibly. But Super Meat Boy, right? Basically, while it is hard as balls and while you will die a billion times, it is 100% fair and perfectly designed. The first thing they did that was genius is they made the main character, Meat Boy, a square, right? Because he's a square, the game has absolutely perfect collision detection, right? To the pixel, right? If Meat Boy touches a chainsaw blade, it detects perfectly whether that 1 pixel of chainsaw hit him, and then he dies instantly. And you instantly retry. You don't have to wait and, to go. It's just, okay, retry. Instant, right? No frustrating waiting, no suffering. Just go at it again.
But at the same time, no waypoints. So you still have to beat the level in a whole go.
Yep.
But every level is kind of broken up in almost 2 parts. And you'll get past the first part, and then you have to deal with the second part, and you'll die a lot there. But watching people play, it's cool to see the growth of mastery very quickly, where a player will be, they'll struggle with the first half, and then they'll be able to do the first half without dying trivially in the course of solving the second half. It's kind of like all the old 90s NES games, the experience of playing Mario 1 all the way through, compressed into an individual level.
Yeah, and this is what I like is, too many games nowadays, right? They basically let you save all the time, or, you're basically constant. You never have to redo anything, and there's no punishment for dying, right?
But granted, I don't want to go back to the old days where I would die at the end of Ninja Gaiden.
And have to start at the beginning of Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah, fuck that.
Right? But, Super Meat Boy is the exact right balance. You die, it was fair. It didn't cheat you out of, it didn't, rob you. The design wasn't misleading. You died fair and square, right? There is a fair and square way to beat every level, right? You just didn't do it.
Now,
now you're going to do this. We saved, last level you beat. It's cool. Just do this level again. And as a result, your skill, the human skill, you actually improve. Not some stat improving. You improve.
Now, granted, the cheap death is a good mechanic, mostly for humor. Like those games like I Want to Be the Guy, I don't enjoy playing them, but I understand why people would.
Yeah, that is a humorous game to watch.
I enjoy watching other people play those games. I love nothing more than seeing Mario hit the hidden coin block and fall into the pit.
Yep. But
that'll never get old to me.
Yeah, but it's not fair, nor is it good, right? But Super Meat Boy is way hard, perhaps even harder than those games, and perfectly fair.
I'll argue those games are good. They're just a different kind of game. I don't like them, and I can argue why I don't like them.
The other thing is that those games are often games of memory, right? You have to memorize the way to get through the level.
Oh, much like Ikaruga.
Yes, whereas Super Meat Boy is not a game of memory, right? You can easily, see the way through the level, at least most of the time, right? Because there's usually, only one way to go. So it's
except for those goddamn laser eyes.
So 90%, 99% of the game is execution, right? Can you execute the path that you see before you? And if you keep trying and stick to it, you will be able to, unless you're an old man with like a palsy, right? You will succeed at getting through it eventually. And even though the game gets harder, you will improve and beat it.
I want to talk about the replay system because that is a stroke of brilliance. I've played games like this before. But when I got to a really frustrating level, I'd play it for like 10, 15 minutes, retry like 100 times, and then I would get to the point of, fuck this, and turn the game off. With Meat Boy, I want to see my dead meats. I want to see the 1,000 times I failed. So the longer you try and fail at one, the more you want to not give up in this current session until you beat it.
Yep. Because then what happens is as soon as you beat the level, it shows you every single playthrough of the level you just played simultaneously.
So it's kind of like all the Meat Boys converge on the optimal solution.
Yep. It's quite a thing.
It's surprisingly satisfying, and I really think it is the only reason a lot of people continue to play Super Meat Boy.
Perhaps.
Because you beat one level, and then you play the next one, and it's like the number of deaths you have experienced is an inverse relationship to the likelihood you will stop before you beat that level.
Yep. The other thing I really like about this game is you look at a lot of other indie games lately, and they're actually kind of short, right? Like Machinarium with the Fact was not a significant game, right? But Super Meat Boy, at times, this game has been like $2 and change on Steam at times, right? But meanwhile, the game is really long. It has a significant number of levels of significant size. And on top of that, right, there are many, many warp zones with additional levels to play.
And a whole bunch of characters.
And a whole bunch of characters to play with. And you can always replay a level to try to get the bandage if you didn't get the bandage.
Man, fuck those bandages.
And if you didn't get an A+ on the level by beating it fast enough, you can replay it to get an A+. And as soon as you get an A+ on a level, you can then play that level in Dark World mode, which is even harder. So the game is just this incredible amount of replay value that is available to you.
So how do you orient yourself? Because I use my left thumb on the analog stick, and I use the right trigger to run.
I've been switching between D-pad and analog stick.
I use the D-pad on if ever I'm walking, like it's a precision thing where I'm actually walking and I've let go of run. Always D-pad.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the time I use the stick. It feels more. I don't know. I throw it back and forth pretty hard.
The thing is, I wish that there was more. If I had the better D-pad than that one, I'd probably use it all the time, just because I'm a D-pad kind of guy. But it doesn't really matter. I can switch it off. And as for the, I used to just be holding down the X button to go fast.
Well, you're used to playing a Mario game where you're just always holding B.
Yeah, right. But I just, I've only found out that you could hold the right trigger to go fast. When people were talking about it. So now I'm experimenting with that. But I still think, I'm just used to holding down, the face
The trigger
button.
is better for me because it kind of like when I play FPSs, I have walk forward as my right mouse button, which is good in some FPSs, but in other FPSs, it kind of loads down my mouse hand when I'm aiming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
I also enjoy all the weird kind of Easter eggs. Like the cutscenes are good. They're short. They're nice homage to old games like Castlevania, Ninja Gaiden.
Gaiden.
And the minus worlds that apparently you haven't found yet.
Well, the minus world apparently is a completely random thing, right? Sometimes, just randomly, when a level loads, a meat girl, right, is all glitched out, and if you touch her, if you actually win on that exact moment and touch her, you will go to the minus world, which I've never been to.
Minus world's fun, but you only get 3 lives. I've never beaten minus world.
I hate that. Some of the warp zones with the ones with the weird characters, you can keep trying, and I like those. But the ones where you're pixelated Meat Boy and you only have 3 lives, fuck those. I can't beat. Some of those, I definitely could beat them if I only had infinite lives.
So that's the thing. You get the old 8-bit experience, but in limited doses, so you can still have that. Because I like the limited lives. It reminds me that I'm relying on the crutch of Meat Boy dies 1,000 goddamn times because I throw caution to the wind. I've got 2,000 some deaths, and I'm only about most of the way through hell.
The other thing I really like about the game, right, is that a lot of games, for example, Borderlands, right? These are games that blow their load early, right? At the beginning of the game, they'll have a whole bunch of interesting stuff they'll keep introducing you to. And then once you get to the middle of the game, they basically stretch the game out.
Castle Crashers.
Right. They'll stretch the game out with a whole bunch of regular stuff, right? Castle Crashers. Early in the game, there's a whole bunch of exciting stuff. Gladiator fights, and then there's the level where you have to run away when you're riding on the animals.
Also, just the design, the music, the sets, and it all kind of gets
But
samey
then after
later.
a few levels, it's basically walk down the street and beat guys up in the snow. Walk down the street, beat guys up in the desert. Walk down, and it's like they stop making special stuff after a certain point. Meat Boy keeps it fresh. Even in later levels, they're introducing new elements like the glowing, pulsating, bouncy things, and then the homing guns, and then lasers, and then different ways to use the keys.
The holes where demon heads come out and then explode into 6 additional demon heads.
The conveyor belts that go up and shoot you up into the sky. The monster that sort of floats after you slowly like a beholder, even though it has a lot more, 2 more eyes, but no eye stalks. They keep introducing new stuff and keeping it fresh. And even though there's a lot of levels, it seems like they put the full effort into designing each level.
Well,
it wasn't
I can name another
it's
game
not like
that did
there's
something
some
very
levels that are designed well and some levels that they just sort of did off the cuff, right?
Remember?
It's like Mario 3 or Mario World,
3.
where they put the full
giant
design
world,
effort into every level.
the Sky World that had both a bottom part, a tower, and a top part.
That's the best Sky
That
World.
was some good. I don't know. Sky World was good because of
Except for
Kuribo's shoe. But Giant World was also pretty damn fine.
Yeah, they put the full design effort into every level, and there's a lot of levels, and they didn't skimp out on anything. So you actually want to keep going and keep going. And there's a tiny plot to go with it that is some tiny humors that is, also worthwhile.
I will admit, though, I love the game, and I'm going to beat it for sure.
I'm definitely going to beat it, but I can only do like 2 levels a day.
When I say beating it, I mean I'm going to beat the whole game normal, and I'm going to beat the whole game dark. And
I'm not going to beat the whole game dark.
I'm going to go for it. But I'm not going to go after 100% bandages or 100% unlocks or any of that BS.
I don't go for 100% in pretty much any games, right?
The only game I have done in the last decade 100% was Advance Wars.
Yeah, I mean, we should do a show about going 100% in games. But I mean, it seems like a lot of games these days, what they'll do is they'll make a game, and it's like you've seen every level, you've got to the end boss, you beat him, right? But now like Mario 64 is it's like, okay, you've beaten Mario 64. You went to every level. You got at least 1 star in every level. You beat King Koopa. But if you get all 120 stars, then you can, then you'll really beat it. But it's like, all that process of getting those 120 stars is not, it's more tedium than whereas before that point, just beating the game feels like there was more substance to it.
Of course, Super Meat Boy bothers me in one regard, and a lot of games do this. Remember, when Mario 2 was re-released on the DS or the Game Boy Advance or whatever?
Yep.
And it was way easy. They gimped the hell out of it.
Yep.
But then they added those stupid Yoshi eggs. You had to find the Yoshi eggs. They're hidden everywhere. It's basically impossible without a FAQ.
Yep.
If you get them all, you get jack and shit.
Yep.
Super Meat Boy rewards you with stuff, playable characters.
Yeah, but I mean, unlocking, I'm not a fan of the unlocking.
I hate unlocking. That's the thing. My problem is that I'm not going to 100% it, and as a result, I'm not going to get these characters.
They're neat. The thing is, I have high hopes that there's going to be an editor for the PC version, which is going to let people make their own levels, which is going to be real good. I foresee a lot of good stuff coming out of that I'll probably play and get into that maybe a little bit. Because modding that will be a lot easier than modding, say, anything else because it's 2D. And on top of that, I have some high hopes that somebody will just make a hack where you can just download a save file and then you have 100% on the PC and then you can play whatever parts that you didn't unlock that you wanted to check out. Try out all the characters once.
I almost want to do a separate show on unlocking because I'm done with unlocking as a mechanic.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
It can be there, but
I just beat Mario Galaxy 2, and then after you beat it, it unlocks this extra world. And it's like I started playing through the extra world because there were actually full levels in there, like a Rainbow Road and all this stuff. And I was like, ooh, I actually want to play all these things. And, it was like, okay, get 5 more stars and then you can play this world. Okay. Get 5 more stars, you can play this world. Okay. Get 10 more and you can play this world. Okay. Get 10 more to play. Fuck you.
Yeah, there's
only
characters.
2 or 3 worlds left I haven't gotten to, but
I got 10
bandages
bandages and I see multiple characters that require more than 50. Fuck you.
Yeah. Well, I think the Minecraft guy requires the most, right? Because he can just cheat. He can just edit the levels. Right? He can just make.
I do like that. How the Meat Boy is the real game, but yet the other characters are just the weird, fun stuff. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not 1, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night. Yeah.
I think that's good enough.
Anything else to go?
No.
You just end it on that weird note?
Yeah.